Welcome to another edition of Lunchtime with Ira, where each week we enjoy lunch with the entertainers, celebrities, writers, and personalities who make Las Vegas the most exciting city in the world. And we're broadcasting from the Sterling Club, the private club in Las Vegas, which is also providing the lunch for our guests on this edition. And we've got a great lineup of guests for you, including documentary filmmaker Arthur Klein, Bob Weissman, he's an award-winning chili cook. We have Kenneth Lohman, who is broker-owner of Luxury Homes of Las Vegas, and Grant Griffin, executive producer of the 5th Annual Meatball Awards. And my first guest is Arthur, who is laughing at the Meatball Awards, but it's Arthur Klein, who is not only a documentary filmmaker, but he's made a new documentary on yoga. And I wanted to have him on because, as you know, yoga and Las Vegas go together, right?
Absolutely.
There we go. And you were just up here at a presentation, but how did you get started in your quest to do a documentary on yoga? Because you were going to take a yoga class. I know you had the flyer, and then something happened a few years back. Tell us about that.
Yes. I was actually traveling around the country making a documentary about great public school teachers, traveling with a couple of billionaires who give money to public school teachers. And the first week on the job, 9/11 happened. And I got a letter, an email from a family friend who had escaped from the 87th floor of one of the towers right before it came down, and I just couldn't stay at work. And like you said, I had a schedule on my desk. I looked down, and it's like yoga 1:30. I was just dressed in jeans and street clothes, and I went to a yoga class.
Now, the yoga 1:30, that's the time, not the kind of yoga it is like yoga 101. It's like yoga 1:30.
Right.
That's just the time.
Well, that day it felt like any yoga would be good yoga.
Absolutely.
Figure. So I didn't even know what
I've
different kinds were called.
always felt that half the yoga is better than no yoga at all.
Absolutely.
So it's good that you did that.
That's what I found out.
So you went there, and it opened your eyes.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're on this quest over several years to visit yoga places all over the world.
Well, back in 2001, 2002, cameras were not really welcome in yoga classes.
And why is that?
Well, because it was a real intimate kind of internal experience. Now with cameras everywhere, it's a different story. But back then, it was tenuous to bring a camera in. And I didn't have the intention of making a movie. I just started doing yoga with these two teachers every day at lunch for a year. And they're like, you're a filmmaker. Look what's going on with yoga. You need to start filming some of this. And I told them, they're crazy. No one's going to let us. They said, don't worry about it. And then they made it possible.
Made it happen?
Yeah.
Did you find initial resistance, not necessarily by the instructor, but by some of the people who were participating, that they were feeling awkward that there was a camera recording their practice?
Well, the way that I ended up filming it, because I didn't put any lights up, and I did it single camera, and I shot it all myself.
So you were sneaky?
Wasn't really sneaky because
I
was this close with people, but
they were
comfortable with it. The funniest thing is, more often than not, I'd always ask at the beginning, anybody, uncomfortable with this? And if so, that's where the light is not the best in the room.
Right.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll happily avoid your space.
Right, and they were okay with that.
Well, the interesting thing is, after the classes that I filmed, a lot of them would come up to me and say, I'm really sorry I said that. I would have preferred to participate. So
I could see both sides. I would be a little bit reluctant because I'm so stiff that when I do take yoga, it's embarrassing, and I'm the worst in the class. So I would probably shy away from the camera. But it's good that you shot a lot of this stuff because it opened, I think, not only your eyes, because you were relatively new to it until you started shooting, but also other people that have seen a documentary that realize that it doesn't apply to just one type of person. It's everybody.
Yes.
And what are the benefits that you personally have experienced with yoga?
I'm happy. I'm really, really happy. Every day I wake up and to be breathing, to be flexible, and to consider the world around me from a light of not what can I have from it, but what can I do for it, I believe is really how my life has shifted. So instead of my happiness being gotten by consumption, it seems like more being in service.
So when you first started out, you started your career in New York.
Yes.
And you were there for just a couple of years in the late 70s, and then you moved to Hollywood.
Yes.
Or as we call it, Hollywood.
Yes.
And, and you worked on a lot of projects there. You won 4 Emmys?
I did.
And those, of course, are, I'm sure you look at them differently now than you did prior to the beginning of the documentary on yoga.
Absolutely. Well, when you're working for somebody and people are kind of guiding you through the process of what they would like to see the end product, it's very different than when you have really no boss but the universe, and you basically tell what's in your heart. It's a different experience.
Right. I think it's still, the Emmys, though, that you received are still validation about your technical credentials. So I think that helps you in terms of when you go and you promote the documentary, that it's not just somebody with a video camera shooting anywhere. You actually have the background, and it's validated by the Emmy. That's the way I would look at it.
Absolutely, and even more so, with that having the credentials, it basically allowed me to do this with no budget, because I did everything. And whereas I might not have if there was a budget and I could hire people, and it would be a different experience. But
so
for me, everything.
You really only, anywhere you went in the world to shoot this, it was just you.
It was just me.
So you really kept the cost down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as a result of that, I can do what I want with it today, as far as using it to raise money for good causes and stuff. And had it been financed by a major studio or something, they might have an issue with places that I'd prefer to show it. So I feel really like I've got this invitation that I've created to yoga, to people who have no clue what this thing is, to get a sense of what it might be if they were to consider giving it a shot.
Now, when I watched the documentary, it opens up in what I would call, and that was my concern, is that it opens up in that esoteric, mystical kind of thing, but then you finally get to the meat and potatoes of it. Not finally, but you get into it within a couple of minutes, which I'm glad you do, because I think otherwise people would tend to think it's all mystical and doesn't apply to daily lives of people, and yet in fact it does.
Yes.
And you can be from all walks of life, and I think that's the important message of the documentary.
Yes. Well, the most interesting thing is we actually have a WWE wrestler in it, Diamond Dallas Page. Mm-hmm. And the way that he discovered yoga is he was terribly injured, and they told him his wrestling career was over at the age of 34.
And he first viewed yoga